By far the best female-centric coming-of-age teen sex comedy ever to feature John Cena patiently explaining that it is rhetorically correct to refer to persons from India as Asian, which is still a more reasonable quality carve-out than awards shows that give separate prizes for Best Drama and Best Comedy. So Blockers is one weird, mushed-together hodgepodge of intentions and concepts, wanting all at once to be a new generation answer to She's Out of Control, Ask Your Grandparents, a Superbad but for girls and that we won't all suddenly realize was kind of skeezy and date rapish in retrospect a year or two later, a Horrible Bosses, Hangover, It's Always Sunny adult cringe comedy for middle-aged suburban parents, a straight-up Apatowian grown-up sex comedy, but also a heartfelt balm for empty nester angst and, rather incredibly, a woke 21st century answer to American Pie that aims to give Generation Y a handful of morale-boosting jokes at the expense of their wacky peers and clueless parents, while also repeatedly hitting said parents, who seem to be the actual audience given the R rating and older celebrity casting, with the almost shockingly forward-looking moral of, hey, your teenage daughters are probably both having sex and taking drugs, possibly in conjunction, perhaps just to try them on, perhaps more decisively, and either way, not really the worst thing at all, so please chill. I mean, sure, this is that particular network TV sitcom wokeness whereby the unspoken yet implicit circumstance that will make everything be fine is that these characters are all upscale suburbanites, so there's a pretty strong cap on how bad anything can actually get for them, but still, it's pretty unusual to see any movie that doesn't really have villains or apocalyptic stakes, and especially a teenage one where the point is not treating teenage indiscretions as either of those things. I mean, hell, one of the guys in this scenario is literally a drug dealer, or like a drug maker and always have around and sharer, I guess, and the movie doesn't even think of him as a villain or any kind of threat. In fact, the running joke is that his date is John Cena's daughter, so naturally she's an omni-athlete tomboy superhuman whom drugs and alcohol have barely any effect on, and again, rich kids, so how much trouble can they really get into, etc. In any case, the simple premise is that Cena, Leslie Mann, and Ike Barinholtz are the parents of three teenage girls who've been best friends since grade school and are now about to graduate. Mann is the devoted single mom who's terrified of being alone when her kid leaves for college. Cena is the world's greatest dad who doesn't exactly know where to put all that energy in the same context. And Barinholtz is the sad, on-the-outs divorced dad making perhaps too late stab at being involved again. By chance, they discover that the girls have all made a pact to lose their virginity to their dates on prom night, and through rationales that are more than a little contrived since this is a mainstream studio comedy, all come to assume that said pact is coercive or at least a bad idea and set out to stop it, setting off a chain of comedic events as the trio pursues the other throughout the night from location to location with humorous results. The basic outline is predictable from about the moment the setup drops into place. You understand which characters will make which mistakes, who will have to learn what lessons about what, and if you glance at the cast listing beforehand, you can even source out what most of the adult supporting cast and cameos are on hand to accomplish. You know how it's all going to wrap up going in, so what matters is how it all gets there. And while Blockers is by no means a classic, it's all pretty agreeable. The main, almost genius stroke is to essentially make both the parent-centric and kid-centered version of the story, chop them down to only the good parts, and then Voltron them together into one doubly funny movie. The teens are all authentic and fun, their interplay is realistic, and there's some terrific jokes to be had at the idea of how much they think they know about sex and sexuality from growing up in a generally permissive media culture versus what they actually know and what that means. The big main gag being that what the parent characters see as this gravely ominous sex pact is basically a thing they thought up at random and decided on a whim and actually aren't all that committed to, and I like that none of them have to be the bad influence or whatnot to make that work. One of them has an actual love story happening with her boyfriend that's appropriately awkward and basically plays. Geraldine Vishwanathan, she's playing Cena's kid, is the one more than just kind of seeing where things go. She might actually be a movie star, by the way, great presence. And the third kid actually has a whole story of her own that's handled very well and has a genuine, heartfelt, surprising resolution. The adults, of course, get more of the overall screen time, or at least they seem to, because they're the famous people, but because those are the characters we're meant to recognize as being wrong and unreasonable, and therefore it's okay to laugh when bad things keep happening to them. Leslie Mann is an old hand at this stuff, which is good because she also has to sell the dramatic beats, i.e. the single mom who had a kid probably too young, and sooner or later the daughter is going to figure out that she is the reason mom is paranoid about her having sex too early, which is emotionally awkward, and have a thing about it, and she makes it mostly work. John Cena was, of course, practically laboratory engineered to play very earnest parodies of exaggerated 21st century masculinity, so he's kind of perfect here. Even if I don't totally buy the resolution for his storyline, i.e. the daughter should probably be more pissed off at him than she ultimately is, but I also really kind of love the idea that he's very upset about all of the daughter, prom, sex, drug stuff, but also he's actually a smart, reasonable guy, so he can't articulate why he's upset. He just knows he's supposed to be, and it's a riot to watch him struggle with that realization. He's a really great comedy actor. Are we really gonna make him play Duke Nukem, though? Because that's never been funny for longer than 5 minutes. Barinholtz kinda gets stuck with the straight man role for the most part, which is unfortunate since he's not one of the bigger personalities out of the three, but he makes it work even though it's sort of a thankless part a lot of the time. Luckily, his angle is different enough, the idea being that he seems to be the sleazy, irresponsible guy, but he's also along for the mission on different reasons. He's sussed out that his daughter is actually a closeted lesbian and that he's worried that she's being peer pressured into sleeping with a boy even though she doesn't want to, which as motivations go is a well-intentioned minefield, but it plays well and the payoff is very solid and sweet. Now, this was directed by Kay Cannon, who did the 3 Pitch Perfect movies, and it has the same mix of smarter than it needs to be comedy and well-earned if predictable sentimentality. I had a lot of fun with it, even if I only laughed out loud a handful of times and pretty much always knew exactly where it was going. I don't know if it's any kind of classic, but then again, maybe if you're as young as the kids in the film itself, it comes off a lot less predictable. Either way, it's a winner. 3 stars. I'd say it's worth seeing.